This is the Money Radio Network. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it is Friday, March the 31st, and it's hard to believe that it is almost the end of March, and we are the first quarter through 2017. Where does this time go? Amazing. If you're just tuning in, Health Futures is a show that I host here on Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM and on the World Wide Web at moneyradio1510.com. And it's about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do we bring this show about? We bring it about by bringing extraordinary guests to the show that can really bring meaningful tips, meaningful information, really where healthcare is going in the future. So I do that by having doctors on the show, research physicians on the show. I have experts in financial services on the show on how to plan for aging and the possibility of needing care. And I'm your host, and I also am one of the owners of a company here in the Valley. It's called Cypress HomeCare Solutions. And what do? We help our older adult population be able to age successfully in place. We're able to do that by providing extraordinary caregivers. We employ over 200 caregivers that are making differences every day in our older adult population's life by enabling them to age successfully in place. And we know 92% of people want to age in place. They want to be able to stay at home. And we can do that by having caregivers come in and assist with activities of daily living. And those activities can be helping them go to the bathroom, helping them get dressed, helping them with meals, reminding them to take their medications, transporting them and driving them to appointments, as well as companionship. We do know that nearly 1/3 of our population that is 65 and older is living home alone. So if you're just tuning in and you've got a aging loved one, or if you know of somebody that just needs a little bit of help at home, give us a call at Cypress HomeCare Solutions. You can reach us at 602-264-8009. Also, if you know of somebody that is that caring spirit that wants to make a difference in somebody's life and has more left in their cup to give, we're always looking for caregivers. And the great thing about coming to work for Cypress HomeCare Solutions is that you don't need experience. We have this extraordinary caregiver training lab. It's named in name of my mother, who passed away nearly 15 years ago. It's the Joan Roth Caregiver Training Lab. And we can teach them how to be that caring, compassionate caregiver. So, again, call us at 602-264-8009 or go out to our website at cypresshomecare.com. We just updated it just 2 weeks ago. Would love for you to navigate through it. It's got incredible resources for you if you're a family caregiver and maybe not necessarily needing care from Cypress, but you could get some tips about how to be a better family caregiver. So I want to get our show started, and our show, as I said at the top, is about the extraordinary guests that we have on the show, and today's no different. Today I have Dr. Daniel Meline. He has an incredible gastroenterology. Did I say that right? How do I say that, Dr. Meline?
GI for short, but gastroenterology.
Gastroenterology and liver disease practice. Welcome to the show. Can I call you Dan?
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob.
Well, welcome to the show. And, I as I have said before by other doctors I've had on the show, Dr. Meline is one of my doctors, and we have you on the show on the very last day of the month, on a very important month, and that is, it is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month.
Yeah, Bob, thanks for letting me bring up the tail end of Colon Cancer Awareness Month. I'm accustomed to bringing up the rear, but I'm happy to be here.
I love it. Well, listen, I want you to share with our listening audience the important about getting screened. I know this from you as well as from others that colorectal cancer is one of the most preventable diseases, and getting screened is what it's all about, correct?
Absolutely. 22 million people who should get screened for colon cancer in the United States don't, for a variety of excuses, not reasons. Because it turns out with this disease, everyone is at risk. Everyone is at risk. It's the number 2 cancer killer in this country for men and women alike, second only to lung cancer as the number 1 cancer killer. Number 1 killer, of course, is cardiovascular disease, but number 2 killer in this country is cancers. And colon cancer is one of the most preventable cancers there is. And I'd like to think of myself as being in the colon cancer prevention business, not the colon cancer detection business.
And you brought up something very important. You said men and women alike. And I think there's this misnomer that men are the only ones that get colorectal cancer. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, the risk is about equal. Women are, of course, focused on mammograms and pap smears, but sometimes they forget that they too have colons. And colon cancer is an equal opportunity cancer killer. It's about 50-50 for men and women in this country.
Wow, that's a fact that a lot of people are not aware of, and you have incredible statistics. And I know that we're getting ready to wind up our first segment. Talk to me about some of the statistics that in terms of people that are at risk.
Well, as I said before, everyone is at risk, and as we get older, that risk does increase. 50 is not a magical number, but we had to come up with some screening age by which we recommend that everyone be screened. So the American Cancer Society, the American College of Gastroenterology, the American GI associations, and all of the various organizations recommend screening at age 50. This past year, approximately 50,000 Americans died of colon cancer, and approximately 145,000 Americans were diagnosed. We now have 1 million colon cancer survivors in this country. And unfortunately, some of these people are going through chemotherapy. Some of these people have had to have surgery. Some of these people have a permanent colostomy, and we would like to prevent that. One of the scariest things, however, which broke in an article in the New York Times at the end of last month in February, was that the incidence of colorectal cancer in younger people has been increasing. And we don't understand or know why. But there will be 13,500 new cases of colorectal cancer this year in people under 50. In my practice personally, I've had a couple dozen patients in my 25 years of practicing here in Scottsdale that I've diagnosed with cancer at a younger age. And Bob, I know that you and I both have kids born in 1990. Their risk of colon cancer is double the risk that you and I have born in the 1960s. And their risk of rectal cancer is quadruple. So we need to be more aware that if somebody's having symptoms, even at a younger age, they should talk to their doctor and consider screening at an earlier age.
This is a problem. I mean, this is something that maybe 50 is not early enough with these new statistics. I do want to talk about people that are at risk. And last week, I had a cardiologist on the show, and we were talking about family history. And family history is something that is an at-risk population for people with that could have colorectal cancer. You would probably recommend screening earlier, right?
Absolutely. People at risk are African Americans. They should start screening at 45, not wait until they're 50. And people who have a family history of colon cancer or colon polyps in primary relatives should be screened 10 years prior to the onset of diagnosis of their relative. For example, if somebody had colon cancer at 54, their children should be screened at 44, at least 10 years earlier.
Wow. I mean, that's a really good thing to note. I mean, screening is everything. This, as you said, is one of the most preventable cancers that is out there. And I know that just the thought of it doesn't exactly appeal to people, but the fact of the matter is it's something that needs to be done. I mean, screening is the key to being healthy and living a healthier, happier life. And that's what our show is all about. Health Futures, taking stock in you. Got a little Bruce Springsteen taking us out, Dan. I don't know if you're a Springsteen fan, but
absolutely.
A little bit of the Boss taking us out. James, thank you very much for the great music. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. It is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, the very last day of the month, but go get screened. We're up against a break. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, we're on our second segment. I got Dr. Daniel Meline here in the studio, and we are talking about Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And when we left off of the first segment, Dr. Meline, we were talking about getting screened and how important it is. And I know I'm not violating any HIPAA rules, but also who joined us in the studio is the owner of Money Radio Studios, Ron Cohen. Welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here as always.
Well, you know what? We're talking about Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. Real important thing to know, because the thing that Dan shared with us, it is one of the most preventable cancers that are out there, and both of us have been screened.
Absolutely.
I'm a customer or patient of Dr. Meline.
As am I.
And I will tell you, I had my procedure done at Scottsdale Endoscopy Center, and I will tell you that the people there were so friendly and kind, and they did a super job making me comfortable, because having this procedure is it's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, you know, you don't want to really have anyone go where no man's ever gone before. So,
Bob, Dr. Meline and I go way back, and I've been there more than once. And I have to say, every time has been stellar, consistent, efficient, and for what you wouldn't think is a pleasurable experience, it was a pleasurable experience.
Well, you know what? I think the hardest part...
Thanks, Ron.
I think the hardest part is really making that appointment.
That's what I always say. The hardest part of a colonoscopy is making the appointment.
You got to make the appointment. If you're 50, you make the appointment. If you're at high risk, you seek out your doctor and your primary care physician and say, when should I make this appointment? If you're African American, you do it by the time you're 45.
Yeah, you know, it's a no-brainer, because there's really no consequence. There's no pain. It's quick. And the peace of mind and knowing that you've done something that everybody needs to do, particularly guys in our age, it's worth it.
One of the things I like to tell my patients, Ron, is that you kind of get a pay-it-forward guarantee on your colonoscopy. Unfortunately, if you have a mammogram and it's completely normal, there's no guarantee that you won't end up with a breast lump a month or 2 months or a year later. It just means that on that particular day, you are cancer-free. But if you have a colonoscopy, the chances of you getting colon or rectal cancer within the next 5 years is really infinitesimally small if you have a colonoscopy.
And, you know, I just went in December, and they gave me a card. And what did that say, that card? See you in 5 years. And that's a good thing. You want to get that card because you got a clean bill of health. And I will tell you that procedure, I think, was about 15, 20 minutes tops.
Yeah, 20 minutes could save or alter your life.
Right, and they gave me this great anesthesia medicine. I think it's the same one that Michael Jackson took.
Yes, we give propofol quite responsibly. You won't know, won't care, won't remember, but I assure you, you will wake up. Michael was doing something he shouldn't have been doing.
Well, exactly. I did wake up, and and the clarity I woke up with was amazing. And next thing you know, I was walking out the door and going home, and I know we're not supposed to be driving, which I wasn't, and I know you're really not supposed to be working, but I did. I didn't make any serious business decisions that could come back to haunt me, but it was an easy procedure. Not only did I have a colonoscopy, but I also had an endoscopy. I got a 2-for-1 deal going that day, so it was I had it going in and out at the same time.
Bobby, we did go from top to bottom because it tastes better that way.
You told me you used a different scope.
I did. I'm just
Thank
kidding.
you.
I use separate scopes.
You know, Dr. Meline is in a great field because he deals so much in preventative medicine, and I believe that, and I've had firsthand experience where you can't say coulda, shoulda, woulda with your health.
No, you can't. And I know you shared that. Please share with our listeners.
Well, you know, we've had Money Radio here almost 30 years, 28 years. Had other radio stations over the years, and in all that time, I've been unfortunate to have one employee that passed away, and he was a 55-year-old man in our Las Vegas station back in the 90s. He died of colon cancer, and when I first found out about it and had a chance to speak to him, the regret that he had that he never got regular screening, and that by the time he got screened, it was too late, was enough to really sober you up and know that this is something that you can really control. As you said, Doctor, it's not something where the next month all of a sudden you're going to get it. And so to take that time out of your life and have this procedure done for that peace of mind is just priceless.
Colon and rectal cancer is unique because most cancers, even very small cancers, skin cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer, any cancers we find in any patient, it's already cancer. But colon cancer starts off as polyps. Polyps are neoplasms or growths that can occur anytime in your colon, and they don't belong there, but they are benign, and over a period of time, they turn into cancer. So one reason colon cancer is so preventable is because we have this precursor lesion of adenomas, tubular adenomas, and sessile serrated adenomas, or flat polyps, that we can detect early and remove them via colonoscopy before they have a chance to transform into cancer.
And that's the interesting thing. When you are having this procedure, and I don't know the technical term, but you're in there with a scope, and if you need to harvest or grab a polyp, you can do that. You don't have to come back in for a second appointment. You're doing it all at the same time. It's within that 20 minutes of the procedure.
Yes, one of the reasons that colonoscopy is the gold standard for colorectal screening is because it's both diagnostic and therapeutic. When I go in with my procedure, I photograph, biopsy, and remove all lesions that I find right then and there. They do get sent to Arizona Digestive Health Pathology, which are board-certified gut pathologists, and within 5 days, you'll know the answer on your pathology report. You'll know that day before you leave the endoscopy center whether you did or did not have a biopsy or a polyp, but we get the results within 5 days. But yes, there's no second appointment. We take care of business right then and there.
And I know that because you did take a couple things, and I got a phone call 5 days later, and everything was clear. So that was really, really cool to hear. And there was no bleeding or anything like that. I mean, it was very normal.
And you had no pain or discomfort afterwards?
No pain or discomfort. The people were incredible there. And I will say this, you heard the tunes that James was playing. I mean, a little bit of Bruce Springsteen. You had some great tunes there in the center. I walked in, I thought I was listening to Money Radio and Health Futures.
I do like to rock and roll while I scope, but I'm a little bit careful to not play Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon or Highway to Hell or Tunnel of Love. I kind of avoid certain topics.
Tunnel of Love, I love that.
Guys, I got a feeling we're kind of preaching to the choir here about this whole thing because the Money Radio listeners are very proactive about their financial life, and I'll bet you to a large degree they're proactive about their health as well. And many of them who are all in our age group have been down this road before, and I'll bet you there's a number of your clients and your patients that are out there listening.
Yes, and there is a certain benefit and financial benefit in peace of mind that knowing that you're cancer-free. And that's off your bucket list for at least 5 to 10 years.
No, that's great to know. And, I know Ron shared a story with one of his employees back in Vegas. Dan, you must have a ton of stories. People have just come in too late.
Yeah, this week alone I mentioned, talk about hometown, I mentioned to a lot of my patients that Kenny Stabler did not make it to his Football Hall of Fame induction in Canton, Ohio this past year because he passed of colon cancer at 69. And talk about a small world. One of my patients that I saw just this week played golf with him and said he was a great guy. Another patient knew his grandchildren and his children, and another patient also had connections. So there's just one person that had three connections to Kenny Stabler, or three people that had connections with Kenny Stabler this week alone.
And another one is a good friend of mine who bought his house. He's in the insurance business. He's been on my show before. He bought his house, and some of the memorabilia was left behind, but very sad, preventable, and didn't have to happen. He could have been there for the NFL Hall of Fame announcement.
Just having Dr. Meline in the studios gives me this greater sense of safety here.
And I got to tell you, we're listening to Jerry Rafferty right now. I think he was playing in the lab when I was in there.
One of my favorites.
Yeah,
yes.
It's just a great tune, isn't it?
Yes.
James, thank you very much. Well, you're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. It's halftime here on the Health Futures Show. I got Dr. Dan Meline here, Ron Cohen here. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we are on our third segment. And if you missed the first two segments, go out to our website. It's actually a brand new website. Go to cypresshomecare.com, click on the radio button, and you can check out the first two segments I've had here with Dr. Dan Meline. Last segment, the owner of Money Radio sat in on our session, Ron Cohen, and we have been talking about colorectal Cancer Awareness Month and how to get screened. So I want to jump right back into this, Dr. Meline. And Dan, one of the things that we did talk about is your center, and I want to, I'm giving you a shameless plug because the people there were amazing. Scottsdale Endoscopy Center. And if you want to reach them, call 480-657-0889. Call up. Get screened. Get an appointment. I'm making the assumption that you don't have to wait months. You have room, so it's not a long waiting period. And you know what? It's painless. The people are great. The anesthesia is really great, and it's 20 minutes of your time to save your life.
Yeah, Bobby. If your listeners mention KFNN, we'll make sure that we get them an expedited appointment for mentioning the radio show.
Perfect. KFNN or Money Radio, Health Futures, any of them, expedited. And I think you talked about even doing the free prep. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people really are scared about is this prep. They hear about the fact that you got to ingest all this stuff and you got to take this and that, and you're going to be sitting on the hopper or can or toilet, whatever you want to call it, all day long. You gave me this new one in this procedure I had in December. I think it was called Prep Kit?
Prepopic.
And it was so easy, so simple. And the first one I had nearly 5 years earlier wasn't a complete one, but this one was much easier, and it was a complete, I evacuated, and I had a clean bill of health, a clean colon.
Well, thanks for sharing your bowel movements with us, Bob. The anesthesia has gotten much better. The sedation is better. The scopes, we have state-of-the-art, brand new, high-definition scopes which can detect polyps at an earlier stage that we used to have trouble seeing with the naked eye, especially the tricky flat polyps or sessile serrated adenomas. And the preps have gotten easier, and the preps have gotten better. And I'm a nice guy. I don't want to torture you by making you drink 1 gallon of Tempe Town Lake and having flash flood diarrhea for 24 hours. So if you're an appropriate candidate like you were, I will give you the very low volume 10 ounces of active prep. It's a very small amount. It's kinder, it's gentler, but it gets the job done. So that helps to remove one of the biggest obstacles that people have for colonoscopy screening, besides fear of pain, which it is painless, embarrassment, which I have complete and total anesthesia. I'm looking at you across the desk right now, and I promise you I cannot picture or remember what your butt looks like. I've seen 40,000 of them in my career. But now the prep is easier. So one by one, we're taking away all of the obstacles for patients to get screened. So you are on clear liquids for the entire day before, but surprisingly, you're not hungry because you can have lollipops, lifesavers, gummy bears, popsicles, jellos, ices, fluids, and you're drinking calories in your prep. You're just not chewing your food. So it's one day of clear liquids, and you can go to work the day before your procedure, and you certainly can go to work the day after, or in your case, Bob, that day, even though we told you not to.
You told me not to.
Because you don't really have diarrhea till the evening. Once you get home, you mix up the small volume prep, you drink it, you do have diarrhea. There's no way around the diarrhea. And I do want to point out that even people that think that virtual colonoscopy or virtual colonography, CT colonography, is virtual, it is not. You have to still go through a complete bowel prep for that procedure as well. But you will be close to the toilet the night before, and then on the morning of, bright and early, you wake up and you take your second shot of prep and come in clean as a whistle for your colonoscopy.
Literally clean as a whistle. And, we talked about impediments, and certainly we talked about, scheduling, and you can get it expedited. We talked about prepping. One of the biggest challenges, and it's really hot on the news, we know last Friday was a big event that happened in Capitol Hill. The House ended up pulling the bill for the Affordable Care Act Light or 2.0, whatever you want to call it. And, we have a lot of people. They say it's, 15 million people that have health care insurance now that didn't have it before as a part of the Affordable Care Act. And one of the challenges that they have is these really high deductibles. And, Dan, I've known you a long time, and the thing I love about, the way you practice medicine is you want to help people. You're a giver, and you want to help people. And you know what? It shouldn't, the cost of this shouldn't be one of the preventions for you having the screen. So talk to me. I'm sure your practice does some financing or negotiates maybe a cash, a reduced cash amount. Money shouldn't be preventing you from getting it screened, correct?
That would be placing a cost on your life. If you avoid a colonoscopy screening because of cost, it could be a very costly mistake. I rather see somebody get any screening is better than no screening at all. Even getting the FIT test for fecal occult blood testing is better than nothing at all. However, you do need to have that done every year, and that has about a 60 to 70% chance of detecting colon cancer. It's not as good at preventing cancer, and it doesn't prevent cancer at all.
It's not the gold standard, no. Like you said, the colonoscopy.
And might pick up a polyp, but that's testing for blood after the fact. Virtual colonography is not widely covered or accepted, and it doesn't pick up small polyps. And if you do happen to have a virtual colonography, then if anything is found, you end up having to go through another bowel preparation and go to colonoscopy to have the polyps removed. So all screening ends up channeling through colonoscopy eventually. So my recommendation is to go directly to colonoscopy, but any screening is better than no screening. Unfortunately, the Affordable Care Act, which made healthcare affordable for some Americans, made all of our deductibles go up, all of our premiums go up, and did change our coverage. Now, some commercial plans do pay for colonoscopy completely as a preventative, but a lot of people in our age group now have these very high
$7,500, $10,000,
or deductibles. And that, unfortunately, what I've seen, even in Scottsdale area, in an affluent area, I've seen that as an obstacle to people not getting their tests done because they don't have the money to hit their deductibles. And that should, again, that's an excuse but not a reason. If you are a uninsured or have a very high deductible, we, of course, will work with you, and there is a very reasonable cash pay price for the anesthesia, the Scottsdale Endoscopy Center, and my endoscopic services. However, I do want to caution, so I don't perjure myself, that
Right.
I'm contracted with Blue Cross and United and Aetna and all the healthcare plans that you're contracted with, and I'm bound under contract to accept your insurance and accept their insurance under their terms. So if you are interested in the cash pay price, don't show me your insurance card because I will have to take your insurance. But it is come down in cost and is quite reasonable. And of course, our billing service would work with you on a payment plan if you can't afford it. Because I want to see everyone get screened.
You can't afford not to be screened. And, I will tell you, thank you for sharing that with us, Dan. Scottsdale Endoscopy Center, 480-657-0889. It is National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. I also want to just say that when we get into the last segment, I want to talk about prevention. I want to talk about, healthy diet. I want to talk about ways to live a healthier, happier life. We've talked about men's health before, and, I really want to be able to do that. If you want to reach Dr. Meline, you can reach him at 480-860-1990 about scheduling an appointment. He's got very good hands. He's missing his college ring and his high school ring. I don't know where they went, but that's an old joke. You got a lot of those too. But in any case, he's got a great bedside manner. Does great work. We are at the end of our third segment. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You, and I'm here with Dr. Dan Meline. We'll be back for the fourth segment in just a minute.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're on our fourth segment. Time is just flying by here on the last day of March. And if you're just tuning in, I got Dr. Daniel Meline here in the studio, and we have been talking about Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. It is the last day of the month, and we were talking about a very important subject that should be at the tail end and also be at the front end in any discussion you have. Did I do good there, Dan?
You did great. I like to tell my patients, instead of pay it forward, pay it backward. Go tell somebody to get their rear in gear and get screened.
Get your rear in gear and get screened because it is preventable. You need to get screened if you are, if you have family history, you need to consult with your primary care physician and do it before you're 50. If you're African American, 45. And if you have no family history, 50 is the demarcation number that you should be going to get screened. And it is not difficult to do. I've done it. Ron Cohen, who's the radio show or radio station owner, he's done it, and many millions of people do it every single day.
As we discussed in one of the earlier segments, if you have any suspicion or change in bowel activity or fatigue, you should consider getting screened earlier. Darryl Strawberry had colon cancer at 35 and survived. Eric Davis had colon cancer at 35 and survived. Sharon Osbourne was diagnosed with colon cancer at 49. If she had waited till she was 50, she probably wouldn't still be alive and fighting with Ozzy. And most famously, from the Couric effect, was Katie Couric's husband, Jay Monahan. He was covering the O.J. Simpson trial back in 96, 97, and going back and forth between New York and L.A., and he was quite fatigued and just wasn't feeling well. He wasn't necessarily having bowel symptoms, but after the trial, he thought he would feel better. He didn't. He went to his physician, and unfortunately, he was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic colon cancer, and he died of colon cancer at the age of 42. Katie Couric was extremely instrumental in raising public awareness for colorectal screening when she had a live on-air colonoscopy in the year 2000. And it's now called the Couric effect when a famous celebrity develops colorectal cancer or any disease and puts it out there to the public to help raise awareness. And we were talking in the break, Bobby, of all the famous people who died of colon cancer. Nobody is immune from getting colon cancer.
You know, it's interesting, and all the people that have died, and looking at the list, you know, we talked about Kenny Stabler, Charles Schultz, John Forsythe, Luke Perry.
Luke Perry did not die. He just had a colonoscopy this week and was found to have polyps. So now he's out there doing the Couric effect.
Jackie Gleason, Robin Gibb, and Farrah Fawcett, who was one of my, you know, I had the pin-up that everyone had in her bathing suit.
Yeah, poor Farrah had rectal cancer and died in 2006. It was actually anal cancer, which is skin cancer of the anus. However, if she had had her colonoscopy, I in my practice have picked up anal cancers on many occasions and can refer them for appropriate treatment. And ironically, both Charlie and Charlie's Angel died in the same year.
Wow.
John Forsythe and Farrah Fawcett both died of anal rectal cancer. And you mentioned Robin Gibb. Unfortunately, Robin died of colon cancer, one of the Bee Gees, who's no longer staying alive.
And, you know, you talked about drawing awareness. You talked about Sharon Osbourne. Ronald Reagan did. 1985, right?
All of our presidents take one for the team. I will mention that Barack Obama was the first president in modern history who did not undergo a colonoscopy screening. He did the virtual one. Again, it's better than nothing, but it's not as good as the real deal, which is
the gold
colonoscopy.
Standard. The gold standard.
But Ronald Reagan in 1985 had his presidential flexible sigmoidoscopy, and they found a tumor, and then he had to undergo surgery. So Ronnie Reagan was one of the first people to raise public awareness back in 1985. Charles Schultz didn't listen to him because Charles died on his 72nd birthday, and unfortunately took Lucy, Linus, and Charlie Brown with him. And then it was in the year 2000 when Katie Couric started campaigning that we're really getting we're making headway. Colorectal cancer is on the decline. Colorectal screening is on the increase. But unfortunately, we're falling short of our goal of 80% screening for 2018. Mammograms have become accepted screening techniques for women, but we're still lagging behind in having colonoscopy become 80% screening for the eligible population.
It's Colorectal Awareness Month. Get screened. This is a preventable cancer, and if you do it in the time that that they say and that I've shared with you, and the timing that whether you have family history, whether you're African American, or you're just an ordinary plain old 50. And I'm holding up here the Phoenix Top Doc magazine, and you know what, Dan, you did don the cover of it one year, but you are 6th time in the row Top Doc Phoenix magazine. It's quite a recognition, and you are tops in the field for me. You do a great job, and I will tell you, one of the things I learned from you is that poop matters.
Absolutely.
It really does matter. And for those of us that have raised kids, we're always looking at poops when we're looking at diapers. But in the business that I'm in, where I'm dealing with older adults, we are very cognizant of bowel movements and really looking to see, whether there's loose stool, blood in the stool. So at the end of the day, poops do matter, don't they?
Yeah, we're interested in poop at the beginning of life and the end of life, but we need to raise poop awareness for those of us in the middle, in the 50s.
Well, I remember you showing me a chart like this and asking me, as my doctor, you said, what does your poop look like? And there were like 6 different types there, and I said, well, this one looks kind of like mine, but it used to look like this, and I know I probably wanted to look like that.
Bristol stool form number 4 is the best number 2 you can have. That's like a brown banana or a Tootsie Roll, smooth and comes out easily. That can be a marker of colon health as it relates to bowel transit. If your stools are coming out like Raisinets and Goobers and Milk Duds, that's your body telling you need to drink more fluid and you need to take more fiber.
And that's interesting you mentioned that, because that's something that we've talked about here on the show, and is nutrition. and eating the right foods and drinking a lot of water. And I know that when I'm not drinking a lot of water, I'm looking at milk dugs and I'm looking at Raisinets and stuff like that, and I know I need to take more water in.
Your radio show last week talked about all the things you can do to prevent cardiovascular disease. Well, fortunately, it's the same things to help with colorectal cancer. But a point I want to make is that even vegetarians and yoga instructors and skinny, healthy people who are good poopers with no family history still do not get a pass on checking out their, you fill in the blank.
Poop?
Yes, I was going to say the A word on the air, but they are less likely to get colorectal cancer, but you cannot prevent polyps and colorectal cancer just by diet and exercise alone, although that's very important.
Yeah, especially water. I mean, it's amazing. We live in this desert, and I got to tell you, Dan, I don't remember drinking as much water when I was a kid as I do today, and especially as we get older, you definitely want to take in more water and hydrate yourself. Dan, we've got about a minute left, and we are really closing the month out of Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. I want you to just please tell our listening audience any last thoughts that they should be thinking about as it relates to Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month.
Unfortunately, we just get a month, but every month should be Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. It's the second most common cancer killer for men and women in this country, the second most common cause of death behind cardiovascular cancer, and every person is at risk. Be aware of any change in your body, any change in symptoms, and it's better to get it checked out than to put it off.
Well, you mentioned Jay Monahan before. I mean, fatigue is something you should be... If you're feeling fatigued, you should get in to see your doctor.
It's a vague symptom, but it was a change for him.
Absolutely. And if you mention Money Radio, you mention KFNN, you mention Health Futures, you'll get expedited scheduling, and you'll get a free prep kit.
I'll spring for the diarrhea. It's on me.
There you go. Well, you're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you want to reach Dr. Meline, you can call him at 480-860-1990. And they got this incredible endoscopy center. It's called Scottsdale Endoscopy Center. They do incredible work there. They got great people. Make it a great day. Have a great month. Cancer Awareness or Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. Thank you, Dr. Meline, for being on.
Thank you, Bob.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress HomeCare Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.